look amazing, though.
Well, thank
it's been so
you.
gloomy here, but immediately you've brought sunshine into our lives.
I know you love green because you're Irish,
Yes.
so I thought I'd kind of use that too. And how are you folks doing?
She has outsold legends, outlived scandals, and out-quipped every single host who ever sat across from her. I call it tactical brilliance wrapped in rhinestones. Interviewers walk in with a list of careful questions. They walk out with no idea what just happened. Because the second the cameras roll, Dolly Parton takes over the room, and she does it with a smile so sweet you almost don't notice she just turned your question into a punchline at your expense. She has joked about her body, her poverty, her rivals, even her own mortality, and somehow made every single one of it land as pure, disarming charm. So how does one woman consistently leave seasoned professionals speechless? Let's get into it. The woman who turns herself into the punchline. Here's the thing about Dolly Parton that catches people off guard every single time. She gets to the joke before you do. Most celebrities, when a reporter edges toward a sensitive subject, their looks, their body, their age, get defensive. They deflect. Their publicist starts sweating somewhere off camera. Dolly does the opposite. She leans directly into the thing you were too polite to bring up, and she detonates it herself, on her terms before anyone else gets the chance. Take her looks. For decades now, Dolly has fielded questions about plastic surgery, about her figure, about the wigs, the nails, the whole glittering package. And for decades, she has answered with some version of the same devastating one-liner. It costs a lot of money to look this cheap. Think about what that line actually does. It preempts the criticism. It owns the artifice. It turns "you look fake" into "obviously," and I built an empire on it. There is nothing left for a critic to say, because she already said it better and funnier. She's done the same thing with her bust, which has been a subject of tabloid fascination since the 1970s. Rather than treat it as an invasive topic, Dolly has spent years mining it for material. She's famously joked, "I was the first woman to burn my bra. It took the fire department 4 days to put it out." It's absurd. It's a little crude. And it works precisely because she says it with total comfort. Like she's letting you in on the joke rather than being the butt of it. Even her intelligence has become part of the act. Ask her about the dumb blonde stereotype that's followed her career, and she'll tell you flatly, "I'm not offended by all the dumb blonde jokes, because I know I'm not dumb, and I also know I'm not blonde." One sentence, 2 punchlines, and an entire tabloid narrative dismantled before the interviewer can even follow up. And when people press her about her rigorous, glamorous image, how does she maintain it? Does she work out? Does she diet? She'll admit she's not exactly hitting the gym. In one interview, she compared herself to a show dog that has to stay clipped and trimmed and in good shape, while cheerfully confessing she doesn't really exercise in any conventional sense. Instead, by her own account, she gets her energy out through what she calls rejoicing, the shouting, clapping, and jumping she grew up doing in Pentecostal church services. "I keep my motor running in the mornings when I just shout through the house praising the Lord," she said. "But that's the extent of my exercise." Then there's the Playboy cover. Dolly first posed for the magazine in 1978, wearing a bunny suit that became one of the most iconic images of her career. Decades later, well into her 70s, she revealed she was in talks to recreate that exact cover for her 75th birthday. Asked whether she'd wear the same outfit, she didn't hesitate. "Maybe. I could probably use it." Then, deadpan, she added the line that made headlines all over again. "Boobs are still the same." She went on to explain her secret for looking so youthful, decade after decade, with the same easy confidence. "I always say good lighting, good makeup, and good doctors, and a good attitude don't hurt either." She even joked that because her look is so consistently cartoonish, she doesn't really age the way other people do. "Even when I'm 90, I'll probably look about the same way. Just a little thicker makeup, bigger hair." Even her marriage gets the same comedic treatment. Dolly was married to her husband, Carl Dean, for nearly 60 years before his passing, and by her own account, he was never impressed by the spectacle. "My husband calls me catfish," she's joked. "He says I'm all mouth and no brains." It's a line that could sting coming from anyone else. From Dolly, delivered with a grin, it sounds like the punchline to the world's longest-running inside joke. Proof that even the person who knows her best still can't resist teasing her, and that she'll happily broadcast it to millions of strangers rather than keep it private. So, if she isn't hitting the treadmill and she isn't dodging the tabloid questions, what happens when someone tries to ask her something truly off-limits, like whether she'd ever run the country? The woman who makes presidents nervous. Politics is where most celebrities go quiet. Not Dolly. She's spent nearly 40 years being asked whether she'd run for office, and nearly 40 years turning the question into one of the most quoted lines in modern pop culture. In 2023, speaking with the outlet Metro, Parton was asked directly whether she'd consider a run for president. Her answer? "No, I don't think anybody could actually do a great job at that. I think we've had enough boobs in the White House." She went further, adding that she wasn't smart enough for politics. Or, she clarified with a grin, "Maybe I'm too smart. Either way, I'm not qualified for that type of a job." It's a joke that manages to be self-deprecating, politically neutral, and razor-sharp all at once, which, if you know anything about Dolly's career-long refusal to alienate any single slice of her audience, is exactly the point. This wasn't even the first time she'd used the line. Back in 2016, during the chaos of a presidential election, Parton found herself accidentally at the center of a political firestorm after comments she made about a potential female president were taken out of context and reported as an endorsement of Hillary Clinton. Rather than let the story spiral, she released a statement that somehow managed to be both a clarification and a comedy routine. "I try not to get political," she wrote, "but if I am, I might as well just run myself, 'cause I've got the hair for it. It's huge, and they could always use more boobs in the race." She closed the whole statement with a warning that no matter who won, the country was gonna be suffering from PMS, presidential mood swings. Read that again. In the middle of a genuine media controversy, the kind that ends careers when handled badly, Dolly Parton wrote a press release with a pun in it. And it worked. The story died down within days because there was nothing left to be outraged about. She'd already turned it into a joke everyone was repeating. Instead of a scandal everyone was dissecting. That's the pattern with Dolly in politics. She never picks a side, but she always gets the last word. Where other celebrities lose fans by wading into the debate, Dolly has spent decades making the debate itself the punchline, a trick almost nobody else in entertainment has managed to pull off twice, let alone for 4 decades straight. But if she's this fast on her feet with the biggest, most dangerous topic in American media, what happens when the subject isn't a presidential run, but the kind of hot-button social issue most stars are terrified to touch at all? Dolly Parton has spent her entire career refusing to hand out her political opinions on a platter, and she's turned even that refusal into a running joke. Asked to explain her lifelong avoidance of partisan politics, she's offered up one of her tidiest lines yet. "Everybody knows I don't do politics, because my mother was a Democrat and my daddy was a Republican, so I'm a hypocrite." It's a fake word built entirely out of her own family, engineered so perfectly that reporters have been quoting it for years. But staying out of politics doesn't mean staying silent when she actually has something to say. In the summer of 2020, amid nationwide protests, Parton was asked directly about the Black Lives Matter movement in an interview with Billboard, and she didn't dodge it. "I understand people having to make themselves known and felt and seen," she said. "And of course, Black Lives Matter. Do we think our little white backsides are the only ones that matter? No." That same year, she confirmed she'd quietly dropped the word Dixie from the name of her dinner show attraction, rebranding it simply as The Stampede, explaining that once she understood the word carried painful associations, there was no reason to keep it. "There's such a thing as innocent ignorance," she said, "and so many of us are guilty of that. As soon as you realize that something is a problem, you should fix it. Don't be a dummy. That's where my heart is." It's a genuinely rare balancing act. She'll take a real specific stance when she means it, and she'll wrap the rest of the conversation in enough charm and self-deprecation that almost nobody on any side walks away feeling attacked. She's even described her actual approach to hard conversations using one more line that could double as her entire career philosophy. She doesn't think of herself as a politician, she said, but more of a diplomat, the kind of people that tell you to go to hell in such a way you look forward to the trip. So if she's this careful, this calculated, and still this funny about the most divisive topics in the country, what does she do with something as small and personal as her nightly skincare routine? The emergency makeup doctrine. Somewhere between charming and genuinely unhinged sits one of Dolly Parton's most consistent, most repeated bits. The reason she claims she never takes her makeup off at night. She's given some version of this explanation for over 2 decades, across dozens of interviews, and it hasn't changed a bit. Speaking with the New York Times in 2019, she explained, "I clean my face in the mornings. You never know if you're going to wreck the bus. You never know if you're going to be somewhere in a hotel and there's going to be a fire. So I leave my makeup on at night and clean my face in the morning." She told a nearly identical story to Ellen DeGeneres, explaining that between the risk of a high-rise fire and the risk of an earthquake, she simply can't imagine having to get out just looking awful. And when RuPaul asked her about it directly for Marie Claire in 2020, she doubled down with a line that's become one of her most quoted, "I have to be ambulance ready at all times if I get sick or something." Here's what makes the bit brilliant instead of just eccentric. It's not really about vanity. It's about control. Dolly has built her entire public identity, the wig, the rhinestones, the nails, the hourglass silhouette, as a costume she chose on purpose. She said outright that the artificial look is intentional, a character she constructed to protect the real woman underneath. So when she jokes about needing her makeup on for an earthquake, she's not confessing insecurity. She's telling you, with a laugh, exactly how seriously she takes the armor she built herself. And, notably, she's drawn one real line in all of this. Asked when she'd ever be seen without makeup, she told The Independent back in 2002 that it would take her husband, Carl Dean, being rushed to the hospital in the middle of the night. And even then, she joked, "I might make him hang on so I could at least get a little lipstick on." It's a dark joke wrapped around real devotion because Carl Dean was her husband for nearly 60 years before his passing in March of 2025. That's the Dolly formula in miniature. Take the most emotionally loaded subject available and hand it back to you as a punchline so sharp you're laughing before you register how personal it actually was. So if she can turn her own mortality into a bit, what happens when the subject is somebody else's massive, career-defining hit, one that isn't even technically hers anymore? The $10 million punchline. If there is one story that proves Dolly Parton can find the joke in literally anything, it's the story of "I Will Always Love You." Parton wrote the song in 1973 as a farewell to her mentor and longtime musical partner, Porter Wagoner, after she decided to leave his television show and strike out on her own. It became a hit for her. Twice, in fact. First in 1974 and again in 1982. But the version most of the world knows belongs to Whitney Houston, whose towering 1992 rendition for the film The Bodyguard became the best-selling single by a woman in music history. For most songwriters, watching your signature song become permanently associated with someone else's name might sting. Not for Dolly. Asked by CBS News whether it bothers her that people assume the song belongs to Whitney Houston, she delivered one of the most quoted lines of her career without missing a beat. "No, I always say, she can have the credit as long as I get my cash." It's not just a punchline. It's practically a mission statement. Houston's cover reportedly earned Parton somewhere around $10 million in royalties through the 1990s alone, with payments continuing ever since. And true to form, Dolly didn't just bank the money quietly. In an interview with Andy Cohen, she revealed she used part of those royalties to purchase an office complex in a historically black neighborhood in Nashville, explaining that she wanted to invest in the community, considering it was Whitney. She called the building the house that Whitney built, turning a business transaction into both a tribute and, characteristically, one more good line for the highlight reel. It's worth sitting with how rare this is. Most artists, pressed on a topic like credit or royalties, either get defensive or overly diplomatic. Dolly does neither. She tells you flatly that she doesn't care who gets the fame because she already knows exactly what she's worth, in dollars and in legacy. It's confidence dressed up as a joke, which, again, is the whole playbook. So where does that kind of unshakable self-assurance even come from? For Dolly, the answer traces all the way back to a one-room cabin in the Smoky Mountains. Growing up. Dirt poor and making it funny. Dolly Parton has never hidden where she came from, and she's never asked for pity about it either. Born the fourth of 12 children in rural Tennessee, she's spent her career turning a genuinely hard childhood into some of her most memorable material, not by softening the truth, but by refusing to let it be anything other than funny. She's talked openly about the sheer chaos of a one-room cabin packed with siblings. "The kids peed on me every night," she said. "There were so many of us. We slept 3 and 4 in the bed. I would wash every night, and as soon as I go to bed, the kids would wet on me, and I'd have to get up in the morning and do the same thing." It's a blunt, almost uncomfortable image, and she tells it like a bit with the same rhythm she'd use for a punchline about her wig or her waistline. That's really the through line of Dolly's entire relationship with her upbringing. She never asks you to feel sorry for her. She'd rather make you laugh at the specifics than dwell on the hardship. It's the same instinct that shows up when she talks about her family's food, her family's faith, or her own limitless work ethic. She takes what could be a sob story and hands it back to you shaped like a joke every single time. It shows up even in how she talks about growing older. Rather than avoid the subject, she's built an entire arsenal of lines around it. "People say how you stay looking so young," she said. "I say, well, good lighting, good doctors, and good makeup." When people compliment her seemingly permanent good mood, she'll answer, straight-faced, "People say I look so happy," and I say, "That's the Botox." It's the same trick every time. Take the compliment, take the criticism, take the invasive question, and hand it right back with better comic timing than whoever asked it in the first place. And she'll tell you herself that none of this is accidental. Asked once about her reputation as a walking quote machine, she summed up her entire comedic philosophy in a single sentence. "I know some of the best Dolly Parton jokes. I made them up myself." It's a small admission with a big implication. The jokes people love repeating about her aren't things she's simply enduring. She wrote most of them. She is, by her own account, both the subject of the bit and its author, which is exactly why nobody else can ever quite land the joke the way she does. And it's not performative distance from her roots either. She still cooks the way her mother and grandmothers did. "I'm not a gourmet cook," she said. "My food is not pretty, but it's good. I cook like my mom, my grandmas, and my aunts." Which brings us to maybe the single most relatable running joke of her entire career, the one about her diet. Of all the things that could derail Dolly Parton's discipline, it isn't fame, and it isn't temptation in the traditional celebrity sense, it's the potato. She's told this joke in some form for years, across outlets from the New York Times to Wired to Good Morning America, and it never gets old, mostly because she delivers it with total conviction every time. "Every diet I ever fell off of has been because of a potato," she said. "Either French fries or mashed potatoes or baked potatoes. Potato, potato, potato. I never met a spud I didn't like." When Wired filmed her for a viral autocomplete interview segment, the potato answer alone reportedly pulled in millions of views within days, because it's just so purely, charmingly her, grand and glamorous on the outside, completely down home on the inside. It's a small joke, but it does the same work as all her bigger ones. It reminds the audience that underneath the wigs and the rhinestones and the $10 million royalty checks, there's a woman who grew up eating whatever her family could grow and who never lost her taste for it. She's since built an entire cookbook, Good Lookin' Cookin', co-written with her sister Rachel Parton George, around exactly that kind of food. Humble, hearty, homemade, potatoes very much included, alongside recipes passed down from her mother, grandmothers, and aunts. Even her sweet tooth comes with a punchline attached. Asked about her favorite dessert for her own birthday, she once told USA Today her go-to is chess pie, and quickly clarified, in case anyone assumed she meant something else entirely, that is chess, not chest pie. It's a tiny joke, almost a throwaway line, but it's a perfect miniature of her whole style. She saw the obvious pun coming a mile away, and she got there first, the same way she gets there first on nearly every subject anyone ever tries to bring up with her. That instinct, spot the joke before your audience does, and say it yourself before anyone else can, is precisely why her potato bit went viral in the first place. When Wired filmed her for their autocomplete interview format in 2020, the clip of her declaring, "I never met a spud I didn't like," wasn't scripted comedy. It was just Dolly answering a mundane question about food the same way she answers everything. Fast, specific, and just a little bit bigger than life. So by the time she's backstage, minutes from walking out in front of thousands of people who paid to see the rhinestones and hear the hits, what's actually going through her head? Pray and pee, in that order. If you want the single cleanest example of how Dolly Parton takes something ordinary and turns it into a headline, look no further than her pre-show ritual. Asked by Today in 2016 what she does right before walking on stage, she answered without a hint of hesitation, "Well, I pray and pee, in that order." That's it. That's the whole quote. And it became one of the most widely shared sound bites of that entire press run, because it's so perfectly, unmistakably Dolly. Sincere faith and blunt honesty delivered back to back, with a punchline built right into the structure of the sentence. It matters that the joke starts with prayer, because Dolly's faith is not a bit. She's spoken at length about her Pentecostal upbringing and the role prayer plays in her life to this day. But she also refuses to treat her own sincerity as untouchable. She'll hand you the sacred and the mundane in the same breath, back to back, and dare you not to laugh. That instinct hasn't faded with age either. In the fall of 2025, when Dolly's sister Frida posted on Facebook asking fans to pray for the singer amid health concerns tied to a kidney stone and subsequent infection, the request set off a wave of public worry. Dolly's response, once she addressed it directly, was pure her. She thanked fans for the concern, poked fun at an AI-generated video that had been circulating online, and closed with the line, "I'm not ready to die yet. I don't think God is through with me, and I ain't done working." Even facing down real health scares at nearly 80 years old, she reached for the same tools she's always used: faith, honesty, and a joke sturdy enough to hold both. So after 4 or 5 decades of turning nearly every subject, her body, the presidency, her mortality, her own family's poverty, into a punchline, what does all of it actually add up to? Why nobody can keep up? Here's the real secret behind Dolly Parton's humor. The thing that separates her from every other celebrity who's ever tried the self-deprecating routine. She is never actually the one losing. Every joke she tells about her body, her looks, her upbringing, or her legacy is really a joke about control. She decides what gets said about her before anyone else gets the chance. She takes the most dangerous, most personal, most exploitable parts of her own story, her chest, her poverty, her faith, her marriage, her mortality, and she gets there first, funnier, and on her own terms. By the time a host, a critic, or a tabloid tries to make a story out of any of it, she's already handed the audience the punchline, and there's nothing left to take from her. That's why unfiltered is almost the wrong word for what she does. It's not that Dolly says whatever comes to mind with no thought behind it. It's that decades of practice have made her instant, precise, and disarming all at the same time. A combination that turns even a routine question about diets or politics or plastic surgery into a moment nobody in the room saw coming. It's why the boobs in the White House line has worked for nearly a decade across multiple election cycles. It's why the earthquake makeup bit has survived interview after interview without ever going stale. It's why she can have the credit as long as I get my cash, instantly reframed a story that could have made her look bitter into one that makes her look like the smartest person in the industry. Every single time, she takes what should be a vulnerability and repurposes it as proof of exactly how unbothered she is. And that's really why nobody can handle Dolly Parton's humor. It's not chaos, it's not luck. It's the sharpest, most consistent comedic instrument in American entertainment, built over 50 years, aimed with total precision, and delivered with a smile so warm you don't even realize you've been outmaneuvered until the segment's already over. Think about how many different kinds of danger she's walked straight through using nothing but a punchline. A presidential election that could have alienated half her audience. A viral controversy that could have painted her as either a hypocrite or a coward. A signature song that could have become a lifelong source of resentment instead of a $10 million payday. A decades-long tabloid obsession with her body that could have worn down anyone else's confidence. A health scare in her late 70s that had fans genuinely frightened for her life. Every single time, the response was the same. Name the fear out loud. Make it funny, and move on before anyone else gets to define the moment for her. That's the real reason interviewers keep losing control of the conversation the second they sit down across from her. They come in with a plan, a list of careful questions, maybe even a topic they've been warned not to bring up. And Dolly, without ever raising her voice or breaking her smile, brings it up herself, on her own terms, funnier than they ever could have. Hosts keep sitting down across from her expecting a conversation. What they get every single time is a masterclass, and Dolly's already 3 punchlines ahead, waiting for them to catch up. And maybe that's the real reason nobody can handle Dolly Parton's humor. She isn't simply funny. She's mastered the art of getting to herself before anybody else can. Her body, her age, her childhood, her faith, her politics, her career, even the things that could genuinely hurt her, somehow become hers to define first. She doesn't need to be loud, controversial, or deliberately shocking. She just needs one perfectly timed sentence, that smile, and about half a second before everyone else realizes what she just did. And honestly, after all these years, we're still falling for it. If you enjoyed this look at Dolly's funniest and most unfiltered moments, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. What's the funniest Dolly Parton quote you've ever heard? Because something tells me we've only scratched the surface.